Well, greetings, friends. It's wonderful to be together. We live in such important, vital times. Isn't it ever more clear to us? I want to consider in this time some elements of need of this time that we find ourselves in. Before going much into that, I want to touch on some earthly elements briefly first. We all know tomorrow is the inauguration of a new president here in United States. Amidst some of the greatest polarization in American history. And as United States enters the second presidency of Donald Trump, the world braces for uncertainty. Some hopefully, others quite anxiously. How about we be neither anxious nor hopeful, but alert, deeply alert to the impulse and guidance of spirit? Might it be that what seems most uncertain and most unprecedented times may in fact be times of greatest opportunity for the action of spirit? I want to mention briefly also of something that's going on the other side of the world in Korea. Something unprecedented unfolding there too. The sitting president, the army chief of staff, and the defense minister are all under arrest for a failed military coup. In Western media, it's not being called an attempted coup, but that's exactly what it was and is. And I want to say a few words about it that are largely unreported in Western media. As has emerged in South Korean congressional hearings, this event, which began with a sudden declaration of martial law, was planned over many months, close to a year, in fact. And the plan was meant to immediately move on to the arrest of opposition leaders and the takeover of dissenting media centers. Wow, that's a lot. The martial law plan also involved faking a small-scale attack against South Korea from North Korea as a means to justify the martial law. Can you imagine that? As it turns out, the US government was aware of the plan and warned the plotters that it would not go along with that and would disclose that a fake North Korean attack on South Korean soil was actually a South Korean plot and not the action of North Korea. This has not been reported in the Western media either that I can see. This warning was given by Congressman Brad Sherman, who is a senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Congress, in a radio interview with major Korean station. This is a lot. In Korea, it was the unimaginable. Martial law and a coup had happened some 40, 50 years ago. And that was thought to be history, but here it was again, surfaced. And I mention this because we are in a time of increased outer world change, surfacing of darkness, perhaps, even as the ultimate pressure of light is increasing in the earth. Well, the pressure of light brings impurities to the surface. We know this. Well, we should not be surprised by unexpected emergence of either light or darkness in the world, or in America for that matter. On the dark side, how about martial law in the United States? Or faked enemy attack on Washington that moves the US further towards autocracy. Unimaginable? Well, let's not get surprised. Unexpected, unforeseen events are increasingly the norm. There's a quickening rise of autocracy, for example, in the world. Yolanda and Martin spoke of the rise of focalization of darkness in the cycles of purification on Earth. Perhaps human self-centeredness knows it has but a short time left and is therefore doing some major thrashing. In a time of Earth's greatest need, such as we are in now. And can we possibly imagine otherwise that this is such a time of greatest need? In a time such as this, doesn't the imperative of leadership stand out ever more dramatically? Compellingly? In a time such as this, to be each of us to be all that we can be. The greatest that we can be. Not for our sake, for our self-importance. Oh, how great I can be. But because of the imperative of need of our planet, of all life on Earth. For life's sake, for the sake of the future of humanity, to be all that we can be, the greatest that we can be. Isn't this our deepest desire, passion? This certainly is my greatest desire and passion, to be the greatest that I can be for the sake of the life of this planet, for the sake of all that have gone before, who have given their life of service. This is something I've meditated upon a great deal over the years, and perhaps you too, Yolanda, Martin, the master are not here. In their absence, how may we offer the caliber of leadership that they did? Is this too much to desire? Is this too much to desire? Solomon asked for understanding. And because his asking didn't come from his personal want or need, but because of his passion for the life of humanity, his wish was granted. If the need and imperative is of the highest caliber of leadership, as was offered by the Master Yolanda, Martin, etc., then is it too much for us to ask that? For ourselves. I say, if we don't ask, don't passionately ask to fulfill this imperative of leadership, then we have sold out we have shortchanged the Lord. We have shortchanged the Lord. Wasn't it also the Master's longing, as was contained in his last prayer on earth, that we, his future body, his body at the time also, but we, his future body, might be with him where he is. I want to explore the meaning of being with him where he is in greater depth in our time. Wasn't it also Martin who said, hear me, respect me, love me, and indeed, if you love me, be me. That we rise to the level, the caliber of greatness and leadership that he offered. Wouldn't that be his deepest longing? The invitation is to undergo yet more fundamental shift in identity than we may have known yet. One might think this late in the cycle of our coming into the truth of ourselves, in our age, in human form on earth, how late is late? And I mentioned that there was the rise of darkness on earth, perhaps rapid rise of darkness on earth, and the focalization of such forces on earth. But as much as there is rapid rise of darkness on earth, there is equivalent rise of the pressure of light on earth. And that pressure is opening doorways of new understanding, perception, opening that were perhaps never as available as before. So I want us to consider the possibility in this hour of a further shift in our identity that is the completing of the Master's prayer of oneness. The completing of a process of absorption of our human identity, but not only our human identity, even our angelic identity, into the identity of one God. This is a process that a number of great ones underwent that we know of. The Master did so, and he said If you see me, you have seen the Father. Absorption into the Father. Martin underwent a process of absorption into God. Yolanda, Enoch, it is said of Enoch that he walked with God and was no more, absorbed into the identity of God. I want to consider in this time the shift, not from the initial shift from human identity to angelic identity, which we might describe as the first shift, but a second shift, which is a shift from angelic identity to one identity. I am one God identity. It is the absorption of what we might have thought as angelic identity into the greater total identity of God. In the 1980s, Martin released a new Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer in the first person of the Father. Not a prayer from the human to the Father, as Jesus had to give to the yet very young disciples to whom he had so much more to say, but as he said, they could not bear them yet. Martin's Lord's Prayer was a universal Lord's Prayer to be spoken in time by a matured angelic body on earth. A body that one by one would represent the Father. Would represent the Father and not pray to the Father. From the prayer of young discipleship, which was Our Father who art in heaven, which was the original prayer, to the prayer of oneness. I am in heaven. The revelation of myself is holy. My kingdom comes because I am here. My will is done in earth because my will is done in heaven. For mine is the kingdom. As I finish reading this, perhaps each of us together. In fact, I will return to the beginning of the Martin's prayer. And as I speak it, may we, each of us, speak these words. Perhaps inside of ourselves, but speak it as in the first person, as me speaking. I am in heaven. The revelation of myself is holy. My kingdom comes because I'm here. My will is done on earth because my will is done in heaven. Mine is the kingdom present on earth Mine is the kingdom present on earth because I am present on earth. Mine is the creative power of the word. And mine is the glory which results shining round about to be reflected by the world which I create. All of us are very familiar with an awareness of ourselves as angels, as divine beings. The vast majority of humanity doesn't know this, but we know this. But how about if knowing ourselves as angels, as individual divine beings, is only one step, and there is yet a greater step to be taken, which is the dissolving of the identity of the angel. Dissolving the identity of the angel. And so that the Father, the totality of God, the Father, may come forth through a local angelic identity, which heretofore I have thought of as myself. As we allow a shift in position of identity from local angelic identity to the other side, to the identity of the one I am. Then the one I am, the totality of God, the Father, has unfettered channel to express through the local, individuated, angelic identity that heretofore I have thought of as myself. But what if we principally are not that? But we are firstly one, I am. Firstly, the Father, the totality of God, and we express locally through this form, through your forms. But in fact, what we see on the screen is not several dozen angels. But the Father, the one I am, expressing through all these local channels. You could perhaps describe this as the second fundamental shift in identity, that we no longer identify with our human form, nor even our individuated divine angelic form. But we step back further into oneness with the Father. And being the Father in expression through our individual channels, the Son of God, the Daughter of God, the Father has unfettered expression. Isn't this the transformation that the Master went through? Isn't this the transformation that Enoch went through? Isn't this, in fact, what in fact happened in Moses on the top of the mountain, but was misunderstood? Or it was too much to understand that then. It was said that he met I am that I am. Well, that's peculiar. He met the I am that I am in the third person? No. He came face to face with the one I am, the one only life, the one only identity in the universe. There is only one identity. The Father identity, you could say. The identity of the one I am. When the Master said, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. Isn't that what he meant? To know ourselves, not as angelic beings, but to know ourselves as one God, Father, in expression through this local form. Now, there's one other practical reason for deeply exploring this, and that is that even after the first shift in identity has been made from human to angelic identity, there is structurally a difficulty that comes with that initial shift, and that is that even though many of us have known ourselves as angels, in that individuated angelic sense of identity, there comes along with it fairly frequently, if not invariably, a sense of inadequacy. I'm an angelic being. But what about that remaining niggling sense of inadequacy? Well, maybe I haven't fully come into my angelic identity, individual angelic identity. Maybe that's the reason. I'll make a great further effort. Haven't you all done that? Haven't we all done that? and yet the niggling sense of inadequacy that remains in the background. I think many of us will recognize that as familiar. The reason why the second shift in identity is important is because when the local angelic identity is allowed dissolution, and we step back into the identity of the one I am, one identity, the expanded, yet expanded identity. It is there that the complete dissolution of any lingering sense of inadequacy happens. I know this from personal experience. We're not a whole gamut of angels scurrying about on earth, trying to bring restoration. What a burden. Impossible. But as we shift into the one identity of who we truly are, I am. There's no more burden. In that one identity of oneness with the Father, of being the Father, of oneness with the cosmos, being the cosmos, the one life of the cosmos, all is already finished, complete. The restoration on earth is already finished. Within the vast expanse of the shining cosmos, which is who I am. The vast shining cosmos in its dimensional outer manifestation, as well as the undimensional realms of being. All of that is the one I am. Many years ago, I had an occasion to experience something that was a remarkable initiation point, a seed point of this experience of shifting, transitioning from personal divine identity to the one identity. I was in the pavilion of Sunrise Ranch, and Martin was in the living room, and many of us were gathered around him, and he was speaking. I must have been in my early 30s or something like that. And I noticed Michael looking at Martin. And I saw this intense current of ray of light and of intense love moving from Michael's eyes to Martin. he was watching with such intensity of attention and love and respect. And I was deeply moved to see that. And in a moment, I thought, what would it be like to see Martin from those eyes? And I followed. For a moment, I went into Martin and then followed his gaze as it went to Martin. And it was like following a tractor beam of sunlight into Martin's eyes. And as I followed that beam and reached Martin's eyes and then entered Martin's eyes, I had a utterly surprising, in some ways almost shocking experience. Well, I suppose maybe, I don't know what I expected to see inside of Martin's eyes. Perhaps some imagination of his divine being. But what I saw was something else. Suddenly, as I entered his eyes, suddenly I was out in the shining vastness of the cosmos, with the cosmos of stars. And there was no Martin. This was the shocking, surprising thing. No Martin. There was just the shining cosmos of the stars. And in a flash, I got it. Martin so loved the Lord God, the one life being of all that is. He so loved it that he disappeared as his human self, but not only as his human self, he disappeared even as an angelic entity or identity. In so loving the Father, the All, we don't matter anymore. We so love that which we will love, that we disappear, and that which you love is who we are. That is what I saw in Martin. The Father. I saw the Father, the cosmos of stars in all its splendor and glory, but not just the physical universe. For the universe contains all the undimensional levels and is God. Personally, over the last few years, and really only over the last few years, I've had a progressive experience of dissolution of my personal identity through surrender, sometimes through great seeming loss, accepting illness, accepting the possibility of death within that illness, unable to walk for 40 days. This was only last year, coming to zero at multiple levels. Surrender of personal will. Coming to know that my will only interferes. And as I surrender and let the no will, as I let the calm in me do the work, then the work is done. There is an increasing thinning of the veil. What I speak of is merely representational. It's the possibility that is imminently available to each of us, especially each of us that love the Lord so much. It's what I'm describing is only a representation of all of you, all of us. There is a thinning of the veil happening, and I credit what has emerged through my consciousness as, in a fundamental way, due to the thinning of the veil that is taking place now, and thus the opportunity available to each one. But to let this really take place, there's something needed which Bill Isaacs, in a recent Tone of Life service, articulated truly beautifully. There's a vulnerability of mind and thinking that is needed to accommodate a fundamental shift in perception that is taking place within the consciousness of humanity, but the most, right at the core of those who are most conscious. A fundamental shift in perception, in paradigm, a shift in the quality of thinking taking place, which can only be accommodated by a lack of preconception, a vulnerability of mind and of thinking, humility, and a precise attunement with the movement of spirit without preconception. And if thoughts come that seem very large, unfamiliar, as what I'm describing, the second shift that I'm describing, then to not insist on the old. Certainly, to not be egotistical about it. This is a shift in identity that is the surrender to the one. I want to By the way, I have spoken on this topic over 6 services in Korea. And this is the first time I'm speaking about it here in the Temple of Light. Over this course of those 6 services, it has gone deeper and deeper for them. But recently I spoke about an inherent challenge that is in the entertaining, the dwelling on this topic. And that is that the circuitry of thinking of the past, the circuitry of thinking and perception of individuated angel identity, also certainly of separated human identity, is so familiar that we may glimpse something for a moment and expand, but come back to the old quickly. And I've said to them, that's okay. This shift will take place over increments, over many shifts over time. So don't worry about it. Don't get tense about it. Relax. As you relax and open and open and open, it will come. But most of all, don't think you already know it, because likely you don't. The idea of grand one identity, that is not it either. It's the relaxing, it's the opening, it's the vulnerability that brings the ease of the one. I'm not merely a human being. We all know this. I'm not merely a human being or even an angelic divine being. Well, this one is a little tougher. What? I'm not even an angelic being. I am the totality of God expressing through an individual divine identity. Foremost, I am the one life of this universe, expressing through this local form. I want to complete this time by reading the music that was played at the beginning of the last Temple of Light service, titled The Song of the Avatars. The lyric of it, I don't know if the lyric was released in the transcript or not. Song of the Avatars, the song of the one I am, the song of the Christ, the song of the Christ body, the song of the Father expressing on earth through the local transparent channel available. By the way, this song was written by David Spangler in 1973. It turns out Eileen Caddy at the time thought that David Spangler was the return of the Christ. Well, in a way he was, as we are, each one of us, as we allow the dissolution of whatever limits us of identity, and we open to the identity of the Father. The words of the song are so universal and also so pertinent to today. When righteousness declines and wickedness is strong, in the dying of an age, as a new age comes along, this is when I rise again and yet again to light the flame of truth within the sons of men. As I read this, please dwell in the words together as though they were your words. And ultimately our words. I am light. I am truth. I am the fire of the sun, S-O-N. And daughter, I am the hope of all the earth. I am the hope of all the earth. Is this not the truth? I am the hope of all the earth. The spirit of the one. When men have lost their way and know not where to turn. When men have lost their way and know not where to turn. And is this not the truth of today? When men have lost their way and know not where to turn, and the future seems to end. The future seems to end. The young generations have this view. The future is ending. And the future seems to end. Where the fires of hatred burn, where the fires of hatred burn, then let men look within to see the rising of my flame of love to light the way again. I am love. I am truth. I am the power of the sun, S-O-N. I am the light within all men. The spirit of the one. I am the light within all men, the spirit of the one. When darkness seeks to hold the hearts of men in fear, when men cry out for help and no one seems near, that is when I rise again. That is when I rise again. to shatter forms enslaving men, to let a newer world be born. I am light. I am truth. I am the freedom of the sun. I am the destiny of man, the triumph of the one. The triumph of the one. I am the triumph of the one. The one has not left the world bereft. As we come into the truth of this identity of who we truly are, of the one I am, then there's the body of the Christ, not as young little disciples, but the body of Christ as of ones who have accepted their identity with the Master in oneness with the Father, and thus bring the body of authority of the Father on earth. At this late hour of our human cycle on earth, might not this be the one final task we may fulfill to the glory of the one who sent us. As to the danger of egotism, I say for the time being, the danger of not daring to take the step of expansion into the consciousness of the Father, of the one I am, is the far greater danger. Let us be humble, but let us know the truth. The ultimate truth of who we are, the one I am. Over to you, Steve.
Yujin, beautiful. Maybe there's some comments. I know I have things stirring in my heart. As you mentioned, as we are the one I am, as we are the one I am, and to so yield that, and to let the falseness of the thoughts that come up that we are not dissipate, because we come to that place of stillness and we hear the call. We hear the call of the one that we are, that I am. Maybe there's some other words from others who might like to say something.
Yes, I would. Yujin, we appreciate the focus that you provided for all of us. And we certainly could feel the passion behind your words and the sense of how fitting what you've offered is. A few of us, through emails, have been considering the difference between transformation and a transmutation. It is amazing that there has been transformation from the human ego identity to divine identity in some, given the pull of human nature in this world and all of the false prophets, the religions, the psychology people, the new age people with all of their gimmicks to improve yourself and so on. There was a call sent out to the elect to rise up above all of the human nature shenanigans and begin to know divine identity. This is a transformation that has taken place. And as there is finer and finer substance, and at least some have risen up to a higher level of understanding, the possibility of transmutation has come into view. Just what that is won't be known until it happens, individually and collectively, if it does. But transmutation involves the changing of one state to a completely different state. The example is sometimes given of the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. It's something different. It can't be imagined by the caterpillar what it would be to be a butterfly. But we come to this time of acceleration and intensification in the world. And we begin to see that just transforming isn't enough. It isn't the end stage. It is just a step along the way, that there is something more. And it happens, as you indicated, when we as individuals become invisible. We don't stop being our unique selves, but identity shifts from the individual to the oneness of God. And when that is present, then transmutation becomes possible. So thank you so much for bringing this so clearly into our midst today. It's been a wonderful attunement at a very fine level. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Yujin. You were at the very last saying that there's these two factors, the egotism and the recognition of belonging and being something much greater. And you were saying that egotism is not maybe as important as the will and the shirking of laziness to do that transformation into the one. But I was thinking, actually, they're kind of the same thing, as Larry was indicating, because the accepting the small ego and puffing it up is so shortchanging what one can be. And I guess that's where I want to go with this whole vision that you've laid out, that as we let the ego dissolve and recognize it's a very small, very partial, very kind of inadequate expression of life. And as we go into that larger identity, then that's where true fulfillment happens. And this happens in a very on the ground way, because as even mentally, as we hear from different people how they perceive the one, how they are experiencing it as an individual, and put that into the larger consciousness, then everyone is brightened up by hearing another facet of the one. And it expands our own enjoyment and understanding of being alive. So we have such a wonderful opportunity waiting for us, ego-wise, individually, as we are part of that one cosmic mind, cosmic identity, et cetera, et cetera. But I do appreciate so much what you always bring, and you brought it again, which is that passion that is actually all of our passion if we allow it to be expressed, if we allow it to let it loose. And you do bring that, and it's catalytic, et cetera, and I love that about you, because this is obviously the time when the transmutation into a larger understanding of the one is our task. Mankind went through many revelations about letting go of the ego, but obviously we're here to experience the oneness of the body, his body, our body. This is the task at hand. And I love how we're just getting more and more specific about that. So words are inadequate to really reflect back to you what happens inside consciousness as we listen to you. Hopefully this gave a little bit of a glimpse of what happened for me about our current task, our current opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anne and Larry and Yujin, for your visionary, prayerful guidance through this time of meditation together. I found that there definitely was a prayerful aspect dominant this morning. You asked the question, is it too much to ask for ourselves? To passionately ask. This is an attitude of prayer. In the service that was given a month ago, I read from the book of Daniel. These are the words that the Lord of Lords brought to Daniel. O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling, and he said unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy word, and I am come to make thee understand. What shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. And the point is that from the first that you set your heart to understand, I have heard, and I am come. And the opportunity is for us to set our hearts and our minds in that same prayerful direction and make them available to the Lord to receive whatever it is in his own good timing, guiding each of us and this developing body together through the cycles of transformation that must occur, and then allow him to take each one and the whole in his own good time during these cycles of restoration that we've been working within together. We can't make ourselves transmute. It doesn't happen that way, but we can let go and set our hearts in this prayerful way and maintain that with passion and discover that each day something more is given as something is taken as well. And so we've been doing this together. And this morning, find it brought to this fine climax of experience and increased understanding of what it is that's going on and what will be required. So I just speak these words from the point of my own experience in this process of passionate prayer and passionate asking and passionate letting go to the will of the Lord for this one and for this one body that continues to grow in grace and stature, to be taken into some other completely at this point unknown state and condition in the days to come. But here we are together doing the work now. So thankful for your being with us for this service and for the few weeks that you are in America this time around, Yujin. Very grateful.
Jim, thank you for your time and your speaking of the word. Our next service is February 16th, and the opportunity is open for that one representing I am to come forth to hear the call, to speak the word. So let that be opened in our hearts and minds and so yielded to, as Yujin was saying. Robert, you have some music?
You have something you would like to say, Yujin, before we close?
Just one thought. It takes only a few coming into the Father for there to be victory. Let us be those few.